A millionaire humiliated his wife when she asked for a divorce, saying, "What are you going to live on? No one will ever want you. Shut up." Minutes later, she revealed a secret that left him speechless. "I'd like to ask you to subscribe to our channel. Thank you." Meghan had spent countless sleepless nights rehearsing the exact words she would say. For years, she had endured Taylor's constant criticism, his suffocating control, and the condescending looks from her husband, a businessman who had built a fortune but whose professional success only seemed to fuel his ego and coldness. In public, he was admired for his cunning and generosity. At home, he was a cold, calculating man who treated Meghan as if she were part of the furniture. That evening, seated in the grand living room of their imposing mansion, Meghan finally summoned the courage she had lacked for so long. With a determined glint in her eyes, she approached Taylor, who was lounging on the sofa with a glass of wine in hand, the television broadcasting financial news in the background. "I want a divorce," she said firmly, though her heart pounded in her chest. Taylor slowly lifted his gaze, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. A mocking smile curled on his lips before he let out a laugh that echoed through the entire room. "Divorce? Meghan, are you seriously saying this?" he scoffed, placing his glass on the table. "And what are you going to do? Where will you go? You think you can support yourself with your skills?" Meghan felt her face flush with heat, but she didn't respond. Taylor stood from the sofa, circling her like a predator stalking its prey. "No one's going to want you with those kids clinging to you, Meghan. Everything you have, everything, is because I gave it to you. This house, this life, even your free time. I've kept you around because it amuses me to see you there, like some decorative doll. So shut up and stop making a fool of yourself." Taylor's words hit Meghan like daggers to the heart, but she refused to let the tears fall. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Silently, she turned on her heel and left the room, leaving Taylor chuckling to himself. That night, while he slept soundly in the master bedroom, Meghan locked herself in her personal study. There was something she needed to revisit, a folder she had found weeks earlier, hidden in one of Taylor's office drawers. At the time, she hadn't thought much of it, but now it seemed like a crucial piece of the puzzle. She retrieved it from its hiding spot and opened it with trembling hands. What she read made her eyes widen in disbelief. Among the documents was a list of bank transfers to offshore accounts, along with the names of companies she recognized from the news, names tied to corruption and financial scandals. What shocked her the most was seeing her own signature on a multimillion-dollar loan she had never authorized. "This can't be happening," she whispered to herself, struggling to process a betrayal that went far beyond insults and indifference. Taylor hadn't just humiliated her emotionally. He had used her name to shield his shady business dealings. Before closing the folder, something else caught her attention. At the bottom, there was a receipt from a luxury hotel, dated recently. The reservation was under Taylor's name, but what stood out was the mention of a double room and the name of a guest, Isabella Wilson. Meghan felt her world crumble in that instant. She had suspected Taylor of living a double life, but having tangible proof in her hands was devastating. However, alongside the pain, something new began to rise within her, an unshakable determination. "You think you can destroy me, Taylor? This is just the beginning," she murmured as she hid the folder again and saved digital copies of the documents on her personal computer. The next morning, while serving breakfast to their children, Meghan watched Taylor sitting across from them, reading the newspaper as if nothing had happened. His nonchalant attitude and condescending gaze were a constant reminder of why she had decided to leave him. "I've got several meetings today. Don't wait up for dinner," he said, taking a sip of his coffee. Meghan didn't respond, simply observing him with a calmness that made him frown. Taylor had never really taken the time to study his wife, but that morning, something about her seemed different. Still, he dismissed the thought and left the house in a hurry. That afternoon, while organizing papers in her study, Meghan received a text message from an unknown number. "If you knew what your husband does when he's not with you, you wouldn't be waiting so long to act." A chill ran down Meghan's spine. She stared at the message repeatedly, trying to figure out who could know so much about Taylor. Who was sending her this warning? She decided it was time to dig deeper. Taylor had played with her trust for years. but now she had something to fight back with. With the folder in her hands and the message in her mind, Megan prepared to take the first step toward her freedom. As she secured the documents in a safe place, a smile crept across her face. "Taylor, you've mocked me for the last time," she thought. Before we continue with the story, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Megan woke up that morning with a swirl of conflicting emotions. The contents of the envelope she had discovered the night before occupied every corner of her mind. It was impossible to ignore the implications of those documents. Taylor had not only betrayed her trust as a husband, but had also jeopardized her financial stability and that of their children. That blend of indignation and determination began to fuel her. While her children ran around the house, getting ready for school, Megan sat down to review the evidence again. The bank transfers to foreign accounts, the suspicious invoices, and, most painfully, the forged signature on a multi-million-dollar loan taken out in her name. The man who had made Megan feel worthless for years was now using her identity to cover his shady business dealings. When Taylor came down for breakfast, he looked as carefree as ever. He wore his perfectly pressed suit, an ostentatious watch gleaming on his wrist, and carried the air of someone who believed he had everything under control. "I have important meetings today. After that, there's a dinner with some partners. Don't wait up for me," he said, sipping his coffee without even glancing at Megan. She watched him in silence, analyzing every gesture, every word. All this time, thinking he could do whatever he wanted, as if I didn't exist, she thought. But instead of responding or confronting him, she forced a smile, letting him believe he was still in control. As soon as Taylor left the house, Megan hurried to call Sophia, her best friend and an experienced family lawyer. Sophia had witnessed the humiliations Megan had endured in silence, and upon hearing the serious tone in her voice, she didn't hesitate to meet her immediately. In Sophia's office, Megan laid out the documents she had found. Sophia reviewed each page with a mix of surprise and disbelief. "Megan, this isn't just a divorce case. This could destroy Taylor completely. Do you realize the extent of what you have here?" Megan nodded slowly. "I know, and I want to use it, but I can't risk making a mistake. This isn't just about revenge. It's about protecting my children and reclaiming my life." Sophia leaned forward, showing unwavering support. "Then we need to be strategic. We need more evidence. This is powerful, but if you're going to face someone like Taylor, you have to be prepared for anything. He's not going to let this go easily." At that moment, Sophia's phone started ringing. She frowned at the unfamiliar number but answered anyway. What she heard on the other end left her frozen. "Tell Megan to be careful. Taylor isn't someone you can play with. If she keeps pushing, she won't be the only one who gets hurt." The cold, male voice cut off before Sophia could respond. When Megan saw her friend's expression, a chill ran down her spine. "What is it, Sophia? Who was that?" Sophia looked at her seriously. "Someone who doesn't want you to move forward. But we're not going to let this stop us. It just means we're on the right track." The comment strengthened Megan's resolve. If someone was trying to intimidate her, it only meant Taylor had more to hide. But it also made her aware of the danger she could face if she didn't act cautiously. Later that night, Megan returned home and found Taylor sitting in the study. He seemed to be reviewing important papers, but when he saw her enter, he quickly closed a folder and stood up. "What are you doing here? This isn't a place for you to be snooping around," he said defensively. Megan kept her composure. "I just came to get some personal documents. There's no need to worry." Taylor stared at her for a moment, searching for signs that something was wrong, but she had perfected her facade. Without another word, he left the study, leaving her alone. Megan seized the opportunity to quickly check the desk. She found another sealed envelope, this time with the logo of an international bank. With no time to read it right then, she slipped it into her things before heading back to her room. That night, while pretending to sleep, Megan heard Taylor speaking in a low voice on the balcony. She couldn't make out everything, but she caught key words: transfers, collateral, and leave no trace. It was becoming increasingly clear that her husband wasn't just cruel. He was a dangerous man who had built his empire on lies. With the new envelope in her possession, Megan knew she was getting closer to uncovering the whole truth. She decided that the next day she would contact a private investigator recommended by Sophia to analyze the documents. If she wanted to win this battle, she'd need allies, and she couldn't afford to act alone. Hours later, while reviewing the papers in her room, her phone buzzed again. It was another anonymous message. "Megan, you're playing with fire. If you continue, someone could get hurt." Far from intimidating her, the message only reinforced her determination. She secured the documents in a safe place and looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in years, she felt like she was regaining control of her life. "Taylor, you've underestimated me for far too long," she thought as she turned off the light. Across town, Taylor was meeting with a shadowy-looking man in a private restaurant. "I need to make sure none of my dealings get exposed. Someone's digging into things they shouldn't," he said with an authoritative tone. The man nodded. "We're already keeping an eye on Megan. If she tries anything, we'll know before she makes her first move." Taylor smiled smugly, unaware that his wife was far more prepared than he could ever imagine. The tension at home was palpable, but Taylor seemed oblivious to the change in Megan. He underestimated her so much that he didn't see the signs. The calculated calm in her gaze, the way she was regaining her posture, and the silent strength growing within her. For years, Taylor had treated her like a shadow, but now Megan was ready to show him that shadow could destroy his world. The opportunity came a week later when Taylor, almost condescendingly, invited her to an important business event. It was a gala where he would be honored as Businessman of the Year, yet another chance to feed his ego. Though the invitation dripped with arrogance, Megan accepted. She knew this event would be the perfect stage for her next move. On the day of the event, Megan let Taylor believe he was in control. She got ready calmly, choosing a dress she knew would turn heads. It was a bold red, elegant yet commanding, a stark contrast to the demure image he always wanted her to present. When she descended the stairs to meet him, Taylor looked at her with a mix of surprise and approval. "At least you look presentable today," he commented with an arrogant smile, adjusting his watch. Megan simply smiled. Inside, she was already winning. When they arrived at the event, photographers' cameras flashed, capturing their entrance. Taylor, used to being the center of attention, realized that Megan was also drawing eyes. Some of his business partners even approached to greet her, complimenting her elegance. For the first time in years, she felt the power of being seen, of existing beyond the role Taylor had assigned her. During dinner, Megan remained calm, observing Taylor's every move. He was in his element, chatting with partners and boasting about his achievements. However, she noticed the furtive glances he cast at his phone, the messages he checked when he thought no one was watching. When it was time for Taylor's speech, he rose confidently, taking the microphone and addressing the guests. "This recognition isn't just for me, but for the entire team that has supported me on this journey. But most of all, I want to thank my family, especially my wife Megan, who has always stood by my side, even in the toughest times." The words rang hypocritical in Megan's ears, but she kept her expression serene as the attendees looked at her with admiration. Taylor continued his self-congratulatory speech, speaking of integrity and hard work, while she knew his entire empire was built on lies. The toast that followed the speech was the moment Megan had been waiting for. She stood slowly, raising her glass and capturing the guests' attention. "I'd like to take this special moment to make a toast, not just to Taylor, but also to the truth. To the men who build empires on lies and manipulate those they claim to love. To the partners who trust blindly, unaware of what truly happens behind closed doors." Silence filled the hall as all eyes turned to her. Taylor, bewildered, tried to intervene, but Megan continued firmly. "And of course, I want to thank Taylor, not for his support, because I never had it, but for always underestimating me. It was thanks to that I found my strength and discovered I don't need to live under his shadow." Megan's words landed like a punch. Taylor set his glass down on the table with such force that the sound echoed through the room. "Megan, I think that's enough. Don't turn this into a spectacle," he said in a controlled tone, but his eyes revealed a mix of fury and nervousness. She looked at him directly. "A spectacle? What do you call living years in a marriage where humiliation is constant?" "Don't worry, Taylor. This is just the beginning. The awkward silence in the hall was tangible. Some guests began whispering among themselves, while others looked at Taylor with curiosity and suspicion. Megan, feeling she had achieved her goal, set her glass down and walked out of the hall with firm steps, leaving behind an atmosphere thick with tension. Taylor, unable to contain his anger, followed her. He caught up with her in a hotel corridor and grabbed her arm. "What do you think you're doing, Megan? You want to ruin me?" She freed herself from his grip with a firm motion. "I don't need to ruin you, Taylor. You're doing that all by yourself. But if you think this is over, you're wrong. I have proof, and I won't stop." Taylor's face paled. "You have no idea who you're playing with," he said in a threatening tone. Megan smiled coldly. "No, Taylor. You're the one who underestimated the wrong person." That night, as Megan returned home, she received a message from Sophia. "We have more evidence. Taylor isn't alone in this. There are more names, and some are dangerous. We need to talk tomorrow." For the first time, Megan felt a mix of triumph and caution. She knew she was gaining ground, but she also realized the road ahead would be even more complicated. Across town, Taylor sat in his study, reviewing documents and making frantic calls. "I want to know everything Megan has. If she keeps going, I don't care what it costs. Stop her." Megan gazed out her bedroom window with a mix of calm and determination. She knew the battle was just beginning, but there was no turning back now. The impact of Megan's speech at the gala was immediate. The looks from Taylor's business partners had shifted, and the atmosphere within the company was heavy with uncertainty. While Taylor scrambled to control the rumors and minimize the damage, Megan had already taken the next step. The following day, Sophia received her at her office with a grave expression. "You need to understand this isn't just about infidelity or mistreatment, Megan. Taylor's made bigger mistakes than we imagined. The evidence we've gathered is being analyzed by a private investigator, but if you choose to move forward, you need to be ready for the worst." Megan nodded, her face serious but resolute. "I'm not here to give up, Sophia. He's used my life as an extension of his own. It's time he understands he no longer has control." As Sophia reviewed the documents, a phone call interrupted her focus. Megan watched as her friend's brow furrowed while listening to the person on the other end of the line. "Understood. Thanks for the heads up." Hanging up, Sophia looked at Megan with concern. The investigator found something new. Taylor's not just funneling money. He's involved with people who have dangerous connections. Someone's helping him move funds to offshore accounts, and this could complicate things even more. Megan closed her eyes for a moment, processing the information. Every step she took seemed to unveil a deeper web of lies and betrayals than she had imagined. Yet, far from feeling intimidated, her determination only grew stronger. In the afternoon, Sophia and Megan met with the private investigator, who laid out a folder full of documents. "Here are the transactions we talked about. Some are under Taylor's name, but others use shell companies. The problem is, this evidence implicates third parties who won't want this coming to light." Megan flipped through the pages, spotting names she didn't recognize, but which seemed crucial in Taylor's business dealings. There were invoices, intercepted emails, and photographs of secret meetings. "This is enough to expose him. If we present this in court, he won't just lose the company, he'll lose his freedom." The investigator cleared his throat. "That's true, but there's a problem. We've received intel that Taylor already suspects you're investigating him. According to our sources, he started moving assets and deleting records. He doesn't have much time left, but neither do you." The warning left Megan silent for a moment. Finally, she raised her gaze and replied, "It doesn't matter what he does. I'm not stopping. If he wants to protect himself, he'll have to face me first." That evening, as Taylor sat down for dinner at home as if nothing had happened, Megan watched him with a mixture of contempt and pity. Despite everything she had uncovered, part of her still wondered how they had ended up at this point. Where was the man who once promised to love and protect her? But those happy memories were so distant now, they held no weight in her decisions. After dinner, Taylor received a call that made him stand from the table and step out into the garden. Megan, watching from the kitchen, seized the chance to search his office. She knew she was risking a lot, but there was no turning back now. Amid disorganized papers and drawers stuffed with documents, She found a folder bearing the name of a company that seemed familiar. Opening it, she discovered a list of transactions from recent months, all linked to foreign accounts. There were also printed emails where Taylor discussed the possibility of moving abroad with someone who signed off simply as J. The sound of the front door startled her. Megan quickly closed the folder and tucked it among her belongings before returning to the living room, feigning normalcy. Taylor walked in with his phone still in hand, speaking with someone. When he finished the call, he looked at her with a forced smile. "Megan, I think we should talk about what happened at the gala. You behaved unexpectedly, but I understand you might be going through something. If you need help, I can get you a therapist or whatever you need." Megan stared at him coldly. "Help? I don't need help, Taylor. What I need is for you to start facing the consequences of your actions. Nothing more." Taylor frowned but didn't press further. "Suit yourself," he said before heading upstairs, leaving her alone in the living room. Once sure Taylor was in his room, Megan pulled out the folder she had taken and began photographing each page. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "We've got new information. Taylor isn't alone in this, and the people backing him won't hesitate to defend him. We need to act fast." Megan replied with a simple "understood." Her mind swirled with plans and possibilities. She knew each step brought her closer to the final confrontation, but also increased the risk of exposing herself too much. In his office, Taylor reviewed his own phone, frowning at a message from someone named Jay. It read, "We need to meet soon. Your wife is getting too close, and that's not good for either of us." Taylor sighed, closing his eyes for a moment. "This is getting out of control," he muttered to himself before deleting the message. Meanwhile, Megan sat in her room, staring out at the illuminated city. She knew what lay ahead would be dangerous, but she was certain of one thing. She would never again be the woman Taylor had underestimated for years. This time, she was the one in control. Megan's plan was in motion, and time was not on her side. The pressure on Taylor intensified with each passing day. Rumors swirled around the company, and his business partners began asking uncomfortable questions. Though he tried to appear calm, his behavior grew increasingly erratic, and his anger simmered just beneath the surface, ready to explode. But Megan didn't falter. She knew every moment brought her closer to her goal, exposing all of Taylor's lies and betrayals. That morning, Sophia called urgently. "Megan, the evidence we gathered has already been handed over to the authorities. But there's more." The investigator discovered Taylor has accounts in tax havens that are being monitored. His recent movements suggest he's planning to flee the country. "We can't wait much longer." Megan pressed her lips together, feeling determination replace any lingering doubts. "Then we need to make sure he doesn't leave without facing the consequences. What else can we do?" Sophia explained that the leaked documents were already drawing media attention, but they needed something more substantial to guarantee Taylor would be publicly exposed. "There's a meeting with his partners tomorrow. If we can leak information during that meeting, the pressure will be too much for him to ignore." Megan nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. She knew confronting him face to face at such a crucial moment was risky, but there was no turning back now. That night, she carefully reviewed the evidence she had gathered, ensuring every detail was in order. Meanwhile, Taylor, holed up in his office, made frantic phone calls, desperately trying to cover his tracks and salvage what little remained of his reputation. The next day, Megan arrived at the company, dressed with an elegance that radiated confidence. Employees glanced at her curiously, sensing that something significant was about to happen. As she entered the boardroom, she found Taylor surrounded by his partners, all wearing tense expressions. When he saw her, his brow furrowed, his irritation barely concealed. "What are you doing here, Megan? This has nothing to do with you," he said coldly. She met his gaze directly, not blinking. "It has everything to do with me, Taylor. For years, I let you humiliate and control me, but that's over. Now, I have something to say." The partners exchanged uneasy glances, the tension in the room palpable. Megan placed a folder on the table and began to speak, her voice calm but unwavering. "Here is the evidence of Taylor's illegal transactions with offshore accounts. These are the fraudulent contracts involving this company and proof that he's been using my name to cover his personal debts." Taylor shot up from his seat, his face flushed with rage. "This is a ridiculous stunt, Megan. You have no idea what you're talking about. No one will believe you." But before he could continue, Sophia entered the room accompanied by a court officer who handed a document to one of the partners. "This is a warrant for an investigation into Taylor Martinez for money laundering and tax fraud. The evidence presented is sufficient to proceed with a formal investigation." Silence engulfed the room. The partners stared at Taylor, their faces a mix of shock and disapproval. Taylor slumped back into his seat, realizing his world was crumbling around him. Megan watched him with a blend of satisfaction and sadness, knowing this was the result of years of lies and humiliation. That afternoon, Taylor was escorted out of the building by authorities, while employees whispered and photographers captured every moment. From a corner, Megan watched him disappear, feeling the enormous weight lift from her shoulders. But she knew her fight wasn't over. Back home, Megan found an envelope slipped under the door. Opening it, she discovered a handwritten note that read, "This isn't over. There are still things you don't know about Taylor and what he's been doing. Be careful." Megan's heart pounded as she reread the words. Though she had managed to destroy Taylor's facade, she knew their story was far from over. However, instead of feeling intimidated, her resolve only strengthened. That night, as she stared out her bedroom window, Megan knew her life was changing. She had reclaimed her voice, her dignity, and most importantly, control over her destiny. But she also understood that the price of truth could be steep, and she was ready to pay it. The morning after Taylor's arrest dawned with headlines splashed across every newspaper. The news spoke of a disgraced businessman, entangled in financial and legal scandals. Megan watched the television screens as the newscasters broke down the charges against him. Though her name appeared in the reports, not as a culprit, but as the woman who had exposed the case, she felt that all the media noise was just a distant echo compared to the peace she was finally beginning to feel. Sophia called early. "Megan, the authorities want to speak with you about the evidence you provided. It's a formality, but we need to be prepared for their questions. But I want you to know something important. You did it. What you've achieved isn't just justice, it's a victory for yourself." Megan took a deep breath. "Thank you, Sophia. I don't know what I would have done without you, but I feel like this isn't over yet." Taylor left so many lies in his wake that it'll be hard to clean up the mess completely. Sophia reassured her. "Now it's time to focus on what's ahead. Everything you thought was lost can be rebuilt, but this time, it'll be on your own terms." That day, Megan began organizing her new life. She had regained access to assets Taylor had tried to hide and started making financial decisions to protect her children. She enrolled in management courses and sought advice on how to invest her money wisely. But her greatest achievement was founding an organization dedicated to supporting women facing emotional and financial abuse. In an interview with a prominent magazine, Megan spoke about her experience and shared a powerful message. "The biggest mistake we make is believing we don't have the power to change our lives. I believed that for years, but now I know the strength was always there. I just needed to find it." Her words resonated with listeners, turning her into a symbol of resilience. Meanwhile, Taylor faced his own demons. From the confines of a provisional prison cell, he watched his world crumble. He tried to blame Megan for his downfall, but his partners and allies had abandoned him, knowing his web of corruption was indefensible. Despite his initial arrogance, reality hit him hard. He was alone, facing the consequences of his decisions. One afternoon, Megan received an unexpected letter from Taylor. His handwriting was messy, almost unrecognizable. "Megan, you took everything from me, but I guess I brought it on myself. Despite everything, I regret how things ended. I was a fool for not seeing you for who you truly were. Someone strong, someone who deserved more than I could ever give. I hope you find the happiness I never knew how to offer you." Megan read the letter with mixed emotions. For a moment, she remembered the years when she believed Taylor was her world, the happy moments before love turned into control and disdain. But she also knew those words wouldn't change the past or erase the pain he had caused. She tucked the letter into a drawer, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder of everything she had overcome. Days later, Megan was invited to a business event where she would officially announce her new organization. Wearing a simple yet elegant white dress, she stepped onto the stage and spoke to the crowd. "I'm not here to talk about the past, but about the future. Today, I stand as proof that adversity can be transformed into opportunity and that pain doesn't define who we are. This organization isn't just mine. It's for all the women who've ever felt they couldn't go on." The applause was deafening. Sophia, sitting in the audience, gave her a proud smile. But the most important thing for Megan was seeing her children among the crowd, clapping enthusiastically. That moment sealed her personal victory. Not only had she won the battle against Taylor, but she had also regained confidence in herself and the love of her children. When the event ended, Megan walked to her car with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. As she settled into the back seat, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Megan, you're free now, but remember, there are secrets that haven't come to light yet. Protect what you've built." Though the message caught her off guard, Megan decided she wouldn't let anything hold her back. She gazed out the window, watching the city lights, and thought, "Whatever happens, I'm ready to face it." With a calm smile, she knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one she would build with strength, dignity, and the power of someone who no longer feared the shadows of her past. Thank you for listening to this incredible story until the end. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We also suggest watching the video that appears on the screen so you can discover other amazing stories, because I guarantee you'll be surprised.